Welcome to the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast on Mintwave Radio and all podcast platforms. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer with an online program and would like to find out how to grow your business whilst having fun podcasting, go to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free. Let's dive into today's episode.
So welcome to the show. And today we have Dan Bagniuk, and he creates new acquisition and sales channels really for some of the biggest 7 to 8 figure brands. Now, today we're going to be talking a little bit about combining YouTube with email marketing. I'm your host, Karen Roberts, helping coaches and experts set up, launch and grow their podcasts to turn them into sales machines. Now, after being the go-to copywriter for Brian Page, Bastian Slott, and other 7 to 8 figure coaches, Dan started hiddenprofits.io. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what was the inspiration for you behind you setting up your agency to help uncover hidden revenue centers to collect an extra? You say that you can help people get between 100 to 200K a month.
Yeah, it's a long story to go back behind the inspiration, because I got into the whole email marketing game by accident. I started as a high ticket sales rep and then transitioned to copywriting. But throughout my time of just like learning how to get into copywriting, one of the easiest ways to get your foot in the door there is just to simply learn how to write good emails. And as I started working with clients, I started realizing how much impact we're having with these emails, because most coaches that I started working with, they had lists, a few thousand people, 10,000, 20,000 people, but they just were not tapping into it at all. So when I came in and started actually writing stuff for them and helping them create like a strategy around that, they started booking in like a lot of extra calls into the calendars, which as a result resulted in extra sales in the back end. So that was the inspiration of getting into the email side, because everyone's so focused on the front end, but everybody always forgets the back end. It's all about, hey, how can I generate the most attention on the front end? How can I get the most leads in the front end? And at any given point, out of the 100% of leads that you generate, anywhere between 1 to 3% of them are going to buy right away. But then everyone forgets about the 97%. But that's where the money's at. In sales, it's so popular to talk about like the money's in the follow-up. Same thing here. They're business owners, and I don't blame them at all, because they're busy people. They want to optimize for results as soon as possible. But if you're not following up with the leads that you generate, the attention that you generated, that's just cash sitting on the table. And just to give you an example of just how big this can be, I had a client, we started working with them in September. They had a massive list of 500,000 people or so. Never really spoke to them. Like, they were doing some affiliate stuff here and there, but they, weirdly enough, weren't actually promoting their own offer, their own services. They weren't really talking to those leads at all. So they knew that there was money to be made. So I came in and we created a strategy to re-engage those people, because they haven't heard from them in a while. So we were able to shave that list down by basically half, which is a little bit unfortunate that only half of them really stayed engaged. But within 5 days, we collected $67,500 just by sending in like one email, which only had 13 words in it. And yeah, things really started to snowball. And then within 100 days, we hit $686,000 collected. And then within 5 months, they crossed the $1 million mark collected just from that email. And like, that money was always there. They just haven't tapped into it.
And how does this happen though? Because like you said, we've all been taught the money is in the follow-up, and people quite obviously are not doing this. And also I would say, I think in this day and age, especially with all the new rules from Gmail, how many emails just go into your junk email section anyway? So how do you do this? What is your process to help these people get the kind of results that you're quite clearly getting for them?
Yeah, so step number one is taking care of the compliance side with email, because you're right. As soon as the hammer came down from Gmail, some coaches have felt the heat from it. I've experienced coaches where their emails went from maybe getting 20, 30% open rates to 3%. And basically the calls, whether they were booking 50, 100 calls a month from emails, basically got wiped out. Like they were not booking any calls from that. So when we come in, first thing we do is actually set up the compliance side. Second thing is we run them through our own sort of re-engagement sequence, regardless of whether the leads have heard from them recently or not. And it's the same sequence that we ran that one client through that generated $67,500 in 5 days, because it just works. So we run everybody through that sequence, get them warmed up, remind them why they're there, give them some freebies, all that sort of good stuff. And then from there, it's very simple. Like we just send them daily nurture and conversion type emails that tell stories, share results, that actually show the personality of the person that is behind the brand. Because that's the other thing too, is there's so many coaches and consultants out in the market that it's becoming very hard to figure out, okay, but who do I trust? Everyone's selling to a degree something similar. There's tens of thousands of e-com coaches, probably there's tens of thousands of business coaches in the high ticket space. And when, as a consumer, you come in, you're like, there's so many options that, first of all, you get choice overload where you have so many choices, you make no choice. But second of all, like I mentioned, you're left thinking like, who do I trust? And because everyone's flexing their Stripe screenshots and then their cars, their houses, whatever, all the vanity metrics, what we do is we specifically, one of the first calls I have with our clients is, tell me about the worst time of your life. When did you struggle? What made you today? And then we'll retell that story to their audience to actually build that trust. Because if you really want to build know and trust, you have to get deep, you have to get vulnerable. It's not enough to just show off all the success that you had. You have to show where you came from. And this is also a big reason why we're actually starting to really go hard in implementing YouTube on the front end for coaches as well, because there's no other platform that builds that know and trust factor like YouTube.
Is that because you do get to maybe share your story? I've been saying for a while now that with the rise of AI, anybody without any experience can write a post for social media. They can put themselves up there as a coach, and they can have zero expertise and zero experience. And I don't know whether that's not helping with the know and trust. Whereas with video or podcasting, obviously what we do is, because you get to show up as you, and I know this sort of word, your authentic self, gets thrown around a lot, but it's true, because if you're showing up on video, people can see you. It's not been generated by AI yet. I know you could get an avatar, right? It's getting a bit scary. But the beauty is, if you're showing up on video, there is that more of the know and trust factor. Is that why this is working so well?
Yeah, you pretty much nailed it. Because at the end of the day, so short form went through a really big buzz the last few years. And I'm going to preface this. I'm not saying that it doesn't work. It works great, especially in tandem with all the things we're going to be talking about. And it's great at generating attention. But the thing is, people aren't going to feel comfortable dropping $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on your offer just through your short form content alone. Again, there's the barrier to entry to get into the coaching space is so ridiculously low that anybody can jump in, pretend like you're an expert, exactly like what you said. So there's so many charlatans that come in and try to be experts, and then they end up burning these people that pay that amount to them. So not only is there a lot of choices for these consumers that come in, but people now, it's becoming the norm to prioritize online education over traditional education. So these new people are coming in. They're starting to, buy into these courses, into some of these people. Unfortunately, some of them are getting burned. So they're becoming a lot more jaded. But also what's happening is they're actually catching on to the patterns of all these marketers, all these coaches. So they're becoming a lot more sophisticated. So some of these tricks that, you will do to get people in, they can see through because they see everyone else doing it. So again, if you want to be like other coaches, sure, play the game that everyone else is playing. But like you mentioned, if you go on YouTube, yes, it's hard. Yes, it's hard to put yourself out there and record yourself and talk to a camera. But because you're opening the kimono and you're showing everything about yourself, your business, your brand, especially if you position it that way, because you're taking the time to film 10, 20, 30-minute long videos, which people are going to go and watch. They're either going to discover you through your YouTube channel. So it could be, again, a front end attention generating asset. Or when they book a call with you, the first thing your leads are going to do they're going to Google you. They're going to look at you through all the social media platforms. They're going to watch all your content, especially if you're on YouTube. And they're going to go on YouTube, start watching your content, and they're going to start sizing you up to everybody else. They're like, who is this guy? First of all, what you're doing right now, is it going to be relevant to me? Is it going to help me? So can you help me? Do you have the right solution for me? Second of all, they're going to compare you to every other coach. Can I trust you more? What is it about you that I like more? Why do I trust you more? Again, people are going to be making their buying decisions, not just off of one short or multiple shorts that you post. They're going to be making their buying decisions based on what they see and how they feel about you, and based on their comparisons of you to other people through your long form content. And by creating that long form, whether it's podcasts or YouTube videos, I'm a big believer for both. Regardless of that, they're getting that attention, and you want to create like a sticky brand where they watch one video, listen to one podcast, and they go on and start binging your content. The more they consume your content, especially the long form content, the more they're going to start selling themselves and why they should buy into you. And by the time they jump on a call, it's a pretty easy call. It's like, yeah, let's just collect the payment.
So what I'm hearing from you is the fact that, and I know a lot of people, I think, get put off doing this kind of thing because they think it's a long-term strategy, but you have to do the work, right? You've got to do the work so that people can look back and see that you have been around for a while, that you do commit to showing up, because people can be very sporadic with their content. And so that is only going to help you build on that loan and trust factor that we keep going back to, because it's so important, as you've said, in this world where everybody is a coach, right? If you're in business for the long term, then it is worth applying some of these longer term strategies. But if you do it from the get-go, from what I'm hearing from you, combining it with your email marketing strategies, it doesn't necessarily have to be that long term. Am I getting that right?
100%. I'm going to touch on the back-end email stuff in a second, the more benefits of the business owner implementing this. But you mentioned something where people aren't really willing to do it because it's a long-term strategy. The thing is, though, the reasons to not do YouTube: it takes too long. You need to hire a team for editors or whatnot, or you can do it yourself, which again feeds into it being too long. It's too hard. It's way too long of a strategy. Those are the exact same reasons why you should do it, because 98% of coaches aren't going to do the same thing. All they care about is getting like the front end sales, the front end cash. So if you just take that one step, not only do you get a massive advantage over the other coaches, because now you're able to nurture people and just convert them through your long form content, you're also being seen as an authority, because again, it takes balls to put yourself out there. So if I'm seeing a YouTuber offer their program versus someone that's just making like short form content or just basic content on social media, I'm going to go with the YouTube person because I'm able to consume more content from them, spend more time with them without the one-on-one. It's one to many, which is leverage. And I'm going to feel more comfortable paying for them. Yeah, I 100% agree. The reasons you wouldn't do YouTube is the same reason why you should. Now, going into the back end of email, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah, that's how the growth happens quicker than you think. There's two ways to look at YouTube. There's either optics, which is views and subscribers, or there's efficacy, where it's calls booked and sales. There are a lot of coaches that have YouTube channels. Maybe they have a few hundred subscribers, a few thousand, whatever. It's not that much. You don't need millions of subscribers. Yet they're still outperforming the other coaches that are in their industry. Because again, like I said, when people book a call, they're going to go and watch that content, or they're going to discover you from that content and spend that time with you. So that's the benefit. The thing is, though, just like content on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, doesn't matter, even YouTube, when you're gaining that attention isn't really yours, because at any point those platforms can take you off, they can shadow ban you, they can do whatever they want with you. As soon as you take that attention off that platform and you start to own it, that's where, again, your leverage builds. And that's how we do with email. For example, one of our clients, he's been doing this for a few years, but recently it's really started to take off. And the email revenue has really grown because what's happening is he has a YouTube channel. All those leads get redirected to the email list, which now we have control of. We can talk to them whenever we want. We can monetize them whenever we want. If YouTube shuts down, that's fine. We still have the leads. Then we're talking to them on a daily basis. And again, they're getting nurtured on all the different social media platforms, on YouTube, on email. We create this omnipresence effect, and these people are much more likely to buy. And as a result, we went from, so we were booking on average about an extra, I think it was like 300 to 400 calls, like total between all of the business a month. And now that we've really doubled down on YouTube and the email side and really created a funnel out of that, we've been averaging anywhere between 600 to 700 calls. Cash wise, same thing. Beforehand, coach was doing really well. Our client was doing really well. He was at about 200K per month, but we never were able to scale beyond that. We were plateaued. Again, implementing this funnel, now we're averaging anywhere between over 300K a month. We hit a record 500K a month last month. But the cool thing is the revenue, especially from the email, went from an average of 50, 60K. Now, in the last 6 months, we have yet to dip below 100K. We've been averaging anywhere between 100 to 200K a month. And that's, well, again, that's the power. It's like YouTube can be a front end, like I said, asset where you generate attention, or it can also be a back end asset where you nurture that attention. But then either way, you have email as well that converts all that attention, and it's owned attention. It's not, you're not renting it from all these platforms.
Yeah. I mean, that, I suppose that is the thing, is all these different social media platforms we have no control over, right? They could change the rules tomorrow, and people may have spent so much energy and time invested into building their presence on these different platforms that it could be taken away overnight. And that is a fact. I mean, I know, you know, in Facebook, people have been locked out or hacked, and, you know, they've lost their whole social media presence. Combining it, what you said about the back end with the email, it is something. And look, I'll admit we do not email our list enough. But I've always been aware that at the end of the day, your assets in business are your website, your email list. If you have a podcast, your podcast. At the moment, I haven't heard of anybody losing their podcast, but who knows, right? Whereas the YouTube side or the other sort of social media platforms, yes, they're third party. You don't have any control over. So what I'm getting is that you've really got to combine the two to get the kind of success that you're looking for. So what do you think stops people from emailing their list enough? Because I know for me, in the beginning, it would be, oh, I don't want to be harassing people. I don't want it to go into spam. It's finding that balance right. What do you think are some of the reasons that stops people from utilizing email specifically to nurture their list enough and to actually even put out offers?
Yeah. So the bottom line to that, I think it really just comes down to there's not much of instant gratification with email. You send it out, sure, you might get responses. The cash doesn't start flowing right away. Like social media platforms have done so well with engineering the dopamine effect of like you post content, you get engagement, you get all this like hype around it, and you get leads from it because, again, it's a shotgun approach. With social media, you have access to everybody. Your email is like your inner circle of what I call it. And that's the big reason why. It's the reality situation is the reason we pivoted our offers to include the YouTube side as well is because I even have come to realize that unless your front end is fixed and you're generating consistent leads, it doesn't really matter whether you have emails or not, because you need to be able to refill that email with constant leads, because the conversion rate there is going to be fairly high, but eventually you're going to burn through all those leads that you sell, and then you're going to be left with people that don't want to buy yet. So that's the thing, is business owners just get so focused on all the front end stuff, which gives them all this instant gratification. By the time they do build out this asset and it's pumping for them, they almost rest on their laurels because they're like, oh, sick. Yes, this got me to 100, 200K per month. I'm relaxing. I mean, for one of our clients, they're already making 8 figures before even tapping into the email list. So it's like you can make good money without email. The thing is, though, again, like I mentioned at the beginning, you're only tapping into 3% of people that are going to buy. If you want basically extra cash flow where you don't have to spend extra money on ads, you don't have to post any more extra content, just tap into the people that have already raised their hand wanting help from you, but they just, for whatever reason, have not bought yet. Because at a certain point, they will. So it's just, like I said, I think it just comes down to instant gratification as to why people don't email the list, because they've either not, they don't get the sort of dopamine hit after sending an email, or they haven't done it long enough to see the true results that it can bring. For the last few, client, this past client that I was just talking about, where we're booking 100 to 400 calls a month, in the last 6 months, we've probably generated over $500,000 with emails. With the other client, where we scaled them up to 686K collected in 100 days, same thing. We're probably approaching about $1.5 million, $2 million. Like, we're averaging 200K a month with them as well. Another client I used to work with, within just over a year, they made over $1 million just from their email list. It's just extra cash that you can collect. And it's just there. But that's the thing. It's just not sexy.
And if you're not great at copy, again, so I think that's why I do podcasting, because I know I find it easier to talk than to actually prep an email. So how do you get these kind of results for people? Your process for writing these emails, you spoke about a little bit earlier, about some of them it's going to be storytelling, because you don't want to just be offer after offer. So what is your process with trying to keep them engaged, your list engaged, without overkill with the continually asking for a payout, basically?
Yeah, there's different ways to do it. There's two camps in the marketing world. One camp is, yes, make offers daily to your email list, and it works. There's the second camp where it's make offers less, a few times a week, maybe like once a month. That works too. We choose a middle ground. And so we got 7 types of emails. I won't dig too deep into them, but there's the hope email, personality, value, proof, objection, check-in, and direct email. Check-in and direct, they're, as they sound, with the direct email is pretty obvious. It's just a very direct offer. Hey, we got spots opened, come join, all that sort of good stuff. But then we mix and match the amount of call to actions. We might only make an offer 2, 3, 4 times a week. If we're running like a promotion, then yeah, it's daily. But other than that, we have a specific cadence where we add so much value and we share so much. And sometimes we'll have a call to action at the end. Sometimes we don't. We make it a little bit like unpredictable. So people, when they open the emails, they don't know. Like, I've been on so many email lists myself where I would just stop reading because I was like, okay, I know this is going to be a pitch. I don't care about reading this. Whereas we'll mix and match. So when people open it, they genuinely get curious because we've optimized for attention on the subject line. But then we give them so much that they can either go and just implement themselves or take some kind of nuggets themselves, or we offer them some kind of help.
So the problem that I see is that because people are afraid to harass, they think over communication is a problem. What would you say to them? Because I know myself, I'm not going to open every email everybody sends to me. And if I'm really finding it that it's annoying, you can simply unsubscribe. There's no stress with it. But what would you say to people that you've got to keep going? You've got to keep putting yourself in front of them to get anywhere. And there is no problem with this over communication. That might just be a story that some of us are telling ourselves, right?
Yeah. One thing, if a lot of people are unsubscribing, good. They wouldn't buy from you anyways if they didn't want to hear from you. So that's fine. Don't optimize for the people that don't want to hear from you. Simple as that, because they will never buy. 2, I find it so ironic that people are so scared of daily emails and over communicate or overstepping the boundary, yet they'll make multiple posts on social media and they'll do a pitch post every single day shamelessly. And then they're like, oh my God, I don't want to email daily from my list because what are they going to think about? Like, really look at your social media, and then you're not, it's just, I don't know. I just think it's weird. So I'll leave it at that. And then, yeah, like the third point I was going to make too is there's people that genuinely look forward to your content. For example, podcasts, whenever if my favorite podcasters release a podcast episode every single day, I would listen to it because I love them. I love their brand. I love what they stand for. I love the episodes they make. It's the same thing with email or any other content that you make. Same thing, let's say, for a TV show. If you love a TV show, I don't think you'd complain if they release an episode every single day because then you get to keep watching it. People that fall in love with your brand, with you and your offers and just like everything that you stand for, they're not going to complain about you showing up every single day. In fact, they would prefer it. And that's the thing. So that's on sort of the consumer side, the prospect side. They're not going to the right people will not get tired of your message as long as you keep it interesting, you keep it different, and you're just honest with people. They will never complain. I've had stories where, for example, just recently, one of my clients told me that in 2022, this guy put down a deposit on his offer, but then for whatever reason, he couldn't start it. So he just left it alone. This was 2022. Literally just last month, this guy came back and finally bought because he was reading the emails this entire time. So it's like, you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know. And again, there's so many people behind the scenes, hiding in the shadows that are watching your stuff that want to hear from you. And when they don't hear from you, they're going to wonder, it's like, where did this guy go? It's just, you're planting seeds every single day. And the second you stop, like, people are going to lose interest. They're going to find someone else to go and track and watch your content daily. Like I mentioned on the YouTube side, you want to create content that's worthy to binge. Simple as that. And if it is, people will never complain because it's good content.
So emailing daily is not too much. That's what I'm hearing from you.
Some of our clients were emailing 2 times a day. So no, it's not too much at all.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from this conversation is that if you've taken the time to build your list and you're doing all this, you're creating all this content to build that list, you are going to be leaving money on the table if you're not continually nurturing that relationship, because you don't know where people are on their journey. So when they are ready to buy, if you haven't put an offer out, then, well, if you don't ask, you don't get. That's going to be a fact, right?
Simple as that. Yeah, it's as simple as that. And it's like, I'm going to touch on the YouTube side too, because this is relevant for there too. But again, like, people always want to hear from you no matter what, especially the right ones. So yeah, like, just ask, give them an offer to work with you. If you know that your product, your offer, your service, whatever it is, the best in the marketplace, like, why wouldn't you put yourself out in front of as many people as you can? Same thing on YouTube, same thing with emails. Like, you probably know that there are people selling something similar to you, charging 10x the price, delivering on 10% of the value, and you could solve the gap. Like, it's, at the end of the day, it's your responsibility, it's your duty to put yourself out in front of those people and actually help them and show them what it's like to experience working with you and your team. So and I totally get it. Like, I haven't been super consistent with email on my list. I haven't really put myself out on YouTube because of my own fears and whatever, fears around judgment and limiting beliefs. But at the end of the day, you got to realize that you're, to a degree, being selfish if you're holding on to all this information and holding on to your service, being like, I don't want to step on people's toes. It's the whole cliche thing of, like, if you knew you had the cure to cancer, like, what would you do? Hide with it? No, you would tell as many people about it as you can. So between YouTube, between email, it's the exact same thing.
Love that. And it's your moral obligation to get that message out there to as many people as possible because they need it. Dan, you've got this program where it's a combination of YouTube and the email marketing. So to the listeners, what should the listeners do next? What would be their next logical step to come and experience what it will be like working with you?
Yeah, shoot us a message. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter, Dan Bagniuk, BAGNIUK. So yeah, just reach out. I just recently, I'm still working on it. I mentioned this to you before recording. Last month, like I've been researching hard into how coaching businesses really take off. So between people like Iman Gaji, Sam Owens, Alex Ramosi, they all have long form brands. And the cool thing I've noticed is, first of all, I've created a sort of breakdown of how our client is booking an extra 100 to 400 calls a month with the simple YouTube and email funnel. But then I've also looked into how these other coaches, these other like almost like industry celebrities basically have scaled so fast. And it just comes down to the fact that they're leveraging free traffic because YouTube has a growth focused algorithm where they will show your content. As long as you hit certain KPIs, they'll show you content to new audiences. Whereas platforms like Facebook or Instagram will primarily just focus on whoever's following you. So it can be a little hard to grow on those platforms. Whereas YouTube, if you do things right, you'll take off. And the cool thing there is, for example, this is part of my research, Iman Gaji has basically a VSL on his YouTube channel that has 8.9 million views. It's a VSL. He pitched on it. Imagine how much money you'd have to spend on ads to get that same amount, the same amount of impressions, the same amount of reach. It's astronomical. So, and the thing is though, YouTube is so good because you hide the sales process because people go on YouTube to learn. They don't, with social media, every second or third scroll is an ad. People become so numb to it. YouTube, you can skip the ads, but then you end up watching the VSL anyways. So it's just like you're using that traffic, you're using the algorithm from YouTube. And what Iman's doing too is any video that he posts, doesn't matter what video it is, he'll put the VSL in his description. So he just recycles that content. Like he gets people to binge and eventually they'll return back to the VSL and then end up buying. And again, this is like why I'm bullish on YouTube and why I truly believe that it's going to be the main thing in the high ticket space. There's just no future without it. Because again, and people like Hormozi, I haven't actually looked at some Sam Owens' stuff, but Hormozi, Charisma on Command, all these sort of entrepreneurial based YouTube channels all do that. So you get to basically get free traffic. Yeah, you don't have to spend money on ads, or you can redirect that money or double down on it basically and get double the effect.
That's really interesting. So basically, the one VSL, and then so are you saying maybe some of their short form videos are sending them back to the VSL? So I suppose then YouTube are going to help because you're not sending them elsewhere. You're sending them. Am I getting that, or have I missed something?
Yeah. There? So the VSL lives on YouTube, or I call like the anchor video because it's just where everybody gets sent to. Shorts, more so. So shorts are a standalone thing. Sometimes they'll redirect people to whatever, the actual video, because what most people do is they'll just take the short from the video. They'll redirect people to the video. It's just a regular, maybe, for example, day in the life video. People watch it. They're like, oh, this is cool. Maybe they go down in the comments or they see in the descriptions, oh, cool, here's another video. Let me click. That's the VSL. So it's all on YouTube. You're not actually taking them off the platform until it's time to buy. But people, again, they don't see the sales process. It's not like a clear ad to them. They're just on YouTube to learn. So they're like, oh, this is an educational video. Here's the best. Iman's video is like whatever it is, like the best business to start in 2024, whatever, something like that. Funny thing is, he posted that 2 years ago. He just changes the date. So it's just yeah. So when I found that out, and that's what I mean. This is why I pivoted really hard, because if people can just, like, regardless of whether you guys reach out to me or not, whatever, if you can just start the YouTube infrastructure on the front end, and you can combine that with the email infrastructure in the back, you're going to have to figure out how to grow both sides. But like long term down the line, again, this is how coaches are going to basically, like, the gap between the haves and the have-nots is just going to get so much bigger in the coaching space because of
it sounds like it's just an ecosystem within itself on YouTube. Love that idea.
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So to the listeners, if they can't see the notes, and if you're listening to this, go back into the show notes to see Dan's info. But if they're just listening, because they might be driving in their car and they can't go and have a look at the notes, how can they find you?
Yeah, so Dan Bagniuk, BAG and IUK. I mean, you can just Google me. I'm on primarily Facebook and Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. It's all the same handle. I also will be launching my first video fairly soon, so it'll be the same thing on YouTube. So yeah, as long as you get the spelling, I'm sure you'll be able to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. It is something that I know I'm not doing enough of. So it's just another reminder that I'm leaving money on the table. So get back on it. So thanks for your time today. For the rest of you, I will be back next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for listening to today's episode on the Podcast Profits Unleashed podcast. If you're a coach, consultant, therapist, or healer who would like to drive sales whilst having fun podcasting, head over to podcastprofitsunleashed.com/free and find out how you can turn your podcast into a sales machine. We'll see you on the next episode.